here's something I want us to like understand that we can celebrate is that Virginia already has meaningful protections. And I don't know what state each and every last one of you are in, but Virginia itself already has some meaningful protections. Virginia law restricts how the Commonwealth may use save, right? The Department of Elections can use certain things and narrow, individualized verification connected to specific records. It can use information to as a sole basis for it cannot use that information as a sole basis to deny someone or reject a registration. It may not upload statewide voter lists for bulk citizen checks. It may not give the Department of Homeland Security more personal information than that is minimally necessary. That is in Virginia law. That comes from the Virginia Code section 24 decimal 24 decimal 4. When I say decimal, 24 decimal 2 TAC 404, right? That's in the Virginia Code. Before a registration is canceled based on citizenship report, Virginia generally requires a notice and gives 14 days to submit a sworn statement confirming citizenship. That is in Virginia Code 24 decimal 2 dash 427, right? We already have that. Virginia also has, and I need y'all to put this in your back pocket. Virginia already has prohibited the use of direct recording electronic voting machines since 2020, preserving that paper-based voting record. It's in the code. We've establishing risk-limiting audits that use hand-counted samples of paper ballots to test whether what was reported, the reported outcomes actually are correct. We've made intentional intimidation or obstruction of election officials and protected sensitive election security information. It's in our code. That is something to celebrate, right? Shout out to the work, and I have to say this woman's name because, like democracy defenders, shout out to the work of our chairwoman of elections, privilege and elections, Marcia Price, out of Newport News, who has worked so hard to secure these elections so that we can have a Voting Rights Act here in Virginia. A whole lot of people have done a whole lot of good work to make Virginia's elections secure, accessible, and accountable. But celebrating what we built cannot become an excuse for refusing to inspect the roof before the storm, for refusing to check that battery when conditions change, right? So here's what we might still need. My team has been working on an elections, materials, and accountability and preservation act, something. What the proposal is and what we're thinking in this time is that we would need to establish some uniform rules for non-routine transfer, access, preservation, and return of ballots, poll books, voting equipment, software, media storage, the audit logs. I mean, I can go on and other protected election information. It will require lawful authority, identity verification, inventories, access records, and continuous chain of custody. That is what we're at. We're at a point where we're trying to create the proposal that would also require rapid notification when protected materials leave the ordinary custody. Because we've seen where sheriff's departments have stepped in and just been like, give me them records, because they're listening to the administration, right? So when protected materials leave ordinary chain of custody, we have to create state-right procedures to establish penalties for people that are knowingly unauthorized or have unauthorized acquisition or access At the same time, it would expressly, it, excuse me, it expressly would not obstruct a valid warrant, subpoena, court order, investigation, or recount or audit. It doesn't get in the way of those things. And so I said, I'm not always honest, but I'm always transparent because honesty isn't needed. We need transparency. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to let you know what's happening. This is a working draft that I think we all need to be working on as legislators. So it is not something that the Department of Legislative Services have created as a bill. It needs legislative counsel, constitutional review, and presser testing. But the basic principle is extremely where's the word I'm looking for? It's extremely simple. Nobody, do you hear me? Nobody, right? No state, federal, private, public, nobody should be able to walk away with Virginia's ballots, election equipment, sensitive data information merely because they were asked very loudly by a president or intimidated. They shouldn't show. We should show the lawful authority, document the custody, and preserve the evidence. We have protections, right? There are other things that I think we need to consider. So there's some other protections that I think we need to consider. One is a federal demand response protocol. So any request for a voter data, election equipment, or protective materials should be written, reviewed immediately by counsel, and tied to an identifiable legal authority. We've got to have stronger data protection. There's no mass removal based solely on a database match. Require these independent verification, individualized notice, a meaningful opportunity to cure and document every final decision, a level of continuity in planning, where backup poll books, secure of offline records, alternate facilities, emergency elections communications and procedures for disruptions to equipment or buildings or personnel. A state election security reserve. If a legitimate, and I'm not talking about Virginia's got some great stuff, I'm talking about across the country. If a legitimate federal, if legitimate federal grants are withheld because Virginia refuses an unlawful demand, the Commonwealth should be capable of keeping election operations running while the dispute is litigated. So, yes, some election reserves. So here's where we are, y'all. This is real. This is why I need you. This is why you are important. We have to ask the questions of us. You all need to ask the questions for us. Don't just say, hey, we need election protections. We're past that point. Give us something that we have to answer. This is why I said, grab them by the ear. What we talked about yesterday with the author and another delegate, grab them by the ear is so important. Knowing how to educate yourself, how to activate, how to recruit people in, and how to keep doing that. You have to give us something that we have to answer. And so your ask could be to your state electeds is, how will you support a special session to strengthen election data, election material, election worker protections before November, right? How are you going to do that? Or do you think we have everything in place? Because I could be wrong. Could be. Right? Ask them, will you require a written, lawful authority before protected Virginia election materials or non-public voter information are transferred? Will you oppose mass removals solely based on an unverified federal database match? Will you support legal and operational resources for election officials facing conflicting or potentially lawful demands. The Secretary of Homeland Security said they want to put election officials in prison. Right? This is not proverbial. And so ask them to do it in writing. I expect my constituents, the folks that I am supposed to be serving, to email me and ask me these questions. So the do here, guys, is some of you, I want you to become election workers. Be ready. Like, this is the time. Certified doers, I need some of you to become officers of elections and be on it right now. That is what Virginia calls poll workers. The Office of Elections checks in voters, issues ballots, operates polling place equipment, preserve records, and helps secure materials after the polls close. Virginia provides training and applications, begin through the Department of Elections or your local registrar, right? Just go to the Virginia Department of Elections. I need somebody that can say it with your chest. Take that day, put that PTO in for November 3rd and be an election official that's not going to stand for the bullshit. Like, you cannot spend every election season asking who's protecting democracy, doers, right? While refusing to take a shift. Take a shift. Sometimes the answer is you. And not everybody can run for office. Not everybody wants to run for office. Not everybody wants to knock doors, right? But somebody has to open that precinct, check that poll book, protect that ballot, witness that count. Democracy right now needs those shift workers. They need elections administrators and elections officials. So I ask you guys, before today, did you believe that DHS's role was in elections? Right? And what protections would help you trust these voter lists or maintain these lists? Right? I want to hear from you guys. Is election security still security when it is enforced through political threats? If I was betting on Shakespeare, I would say, nay as I dare, I bite my thumb at them. Right? No. The thing about it is that election security should be a shield for the people, not some sort of leash that you put around the states, right? That is not the thing. Know that 100% Virginia itself is not starting at zero, but zero panic doesn't mean zero preparation, right? Like, those things don't equip. We have to keep asking who will protect democracy while refusing to take a ship. Democracy needs election workers. Period. Point blank, period. Right? Point blank, period.